Before we get to the story, I'd like to say thanks so much for visiting my new channel. I'm going to be uploading cosmic horror related stories every single day. So if that sounds good, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot, especially when just getting started. I hope you enjoy the story. I never thought silence could be worse than noise. But after what happened on Meridian Station, I learned that some sounds are better than what comes after them. My name is Lance Hughes, and I'm a maintenance technician. Or at least I was. I don't know what I am anymore. I'm writing this during what might be my last few weeks alive, orbiting Neptune on a research station that's become something between a prison and a hunting ground. It started 2 months ago, during a routine night shift. Meridian Station isn't much to look at. It's an old orbital platform that was built back when people still thought we'd have colonies on every planet by now. Instead, it became a research outpost for studying Neptune's atmosphere and magnetic field. The station holds maybe 20 people at full capacity, but we've been running on a skeleton crew for the past year. Budget cuts, they said. Just me, Commander Keaton Brink, and systems engineer Victor Webb, keeping the lights on while the scientists came and went on rotation. I was 8 months into a 12-month contract when it started. That night, I was performing a standard inspection of the airlocks in Section C, the oldest wing of the station. The work was boring, but necessary. Check the pressure seals, test the mechanisms, make sure nothing was degrading in the vacuum. Section C didn't get used much anymore. Most of our supplies came through the main docking bay in Section A, so these old airlocks just sat there, waiting for an emergency that never came. I was on my knees, running a diagnostic on Airlock C7, when I heard it. 3 knocks, metallic, deliberate, coming from the other side of the outer door. I froze. My heart started hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The outer door, the one that opened into space. I stood up slowly and stared at the airlock. It was just a big metal door with a small window at eye level. Through it, I could see nothing but the black of space and the distant swirl of Neptune's blue-green clouds. "Hello?" I said, immediately feeling stupid. There was nothing out there. Nothing could be out there. We were in orbit around Neptune. The nearest supply ship wasn't due for 6 weeks. I waited, counting my heartbeats. Nothing. I went back to my diagnostic, telling myself it was just thermal expansion. Metal contracts in the cold of space, expands when heated. It makes noise. That's all it was. Then I heard it again. 3 knocks, same rhythm, same interval between each one. Knock, knock, knock. I backed away from the airlock and pulled up the external camera feed on my tablet. The cameras covered every angle of Section C's exterior. I scrubbed through the footage, focusing on the moments when I'd heard the knocking. Nothing. Empty space. No debris. No micrometeorites. No anything. I finished my inspection quickly and got out of Section C. My shift ended an hour later, and I headed back to my quarters, trying to convince myself it was nothing. But I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard those 3 knocks echoing in my head. The next day, I mentioned it to Victor during our shift overlap. We were in the common area, drinking terrible coffee that had been recycled too many times. "Hey, you ever hear weird noises in Section C?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Victor shrugged. He was a thin guy with perpetual dark circles under his eyes. "Station's old, man. Things creak. Why?" "I heard knocking on one of the airlocks." He looked at me over his coffee cup. "Knocking?" "Yeah, 3 knocks. Really deliberate sounding. Probably just thermal expansion. Or maybe a piece of debris bounced off the hull." "Yeah," I said. "That's what I figured." But I didn't believe it, and I could tell Victor didn't either, from the way he kept glancing at me for the rest of our conversation. That night, during my shift, the knocking happened again. Different airlock this time. C4, on the opposite end of Section C. Same 3 knocks, same rhythm. I checked the cameras again, nothing. Over the next week, it happened 4 more times. Always during my shift. Always 3 knocks. Always when I was close to an airlock in Section C. Then Victor heard it too. He came to find me one morning, looking pale and shaken. "I heard it," he said. "The knocking. I was running diagnostics in Section B, and I heard 3 knocks on airlock B2. Did you check the cameras?" "Of course I checked the cameras. There's nothing there, Lance. There's never anything there." We reported it to Commander Brink that afternoon. He was a no-nonsense guy in his 50s, built like he used to play football. He listened to our report with his arms crossed, frowning. "And the structural integrity is fine?" he asked. "Perfect," Victor said. "All seals are holding. No pressure variations, no temperature fluctuations. Everything reads normal." "Then it's probably nothing to worry about," Brink said. "But I'll keep an ear out." Victor and I exchanged looks. It was easy for Brink to dismiss it. He hadn't heard it yet, but he would. The knocking started happening more frequently after that. Once per shift became twice, then 3 times. Then it seemed like every time I walked past an airlock, I'd hear those 3 knocks, deliberate and patient, like something was waiting outside. I stopped sleeping well. When I did manage to pass out, I had dreams of floating in space, surrounded by darkness, while something knocked on my helmet from the outside. I'd wake up gasping, my heart racing. Victor wasn't doing much better. His hands started shaking. He'd jump at every sound, every groan of the station settling. Then, 2 weeks after it started, something changed. I was in Section C again, trying to trace a minor power fluctuation, when the knocking started at airlock C7. 3 knocks, same as always. But this time, when I approached the door, I felt something different. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe exhaustion, maybe frustration, maybe just the desperate need to understand what was happening. I placed my palm flat against the inner airlock door. The metal was ice cold, far colder than it should have been. The temperature regulation systems kept the interior comfortable, and while the outer hull was exposed to space, the inner doors shouldn't have been that cold. But that wasn't the worst part. Through the metal, I felt vibration, not the random vibration of debris impact or mechanical stress. This was steady, rhythmic, like something on the other side was pressing back against my hand. I jerked away, stumbling backwards. My breath came in short gasps. For just a moment, just a fraction of a second, I could have sworn I felt something on the other side matching my palm, pressing back. I ran. I actually ran back to the main section, my footsteps echoing through the empty corridor. That night, Commander Brink finally heard it. He was doing his own inspection, probably trying to prove to himself that Victor and I were imagining things. I was with him, when it happened. We were in Section A, near the main docking bay, when 3 clear knocks rang out from the airlock door. Brink went still, his jaw tightened. "That's it?" he asked. "That's it," I said. We stood there in silence. Then it happened again. 3 knocks, deliberate and patient. Brink checked the cameras. Nothing. He ran diagnostics on the airlock. Everything normal. But he couldn't deny what we'd both just heard. "All right," he said finally. "Something's going on. But until we know what it is, we don't panic. We document it, we stay alert, and we wait for the supply ship." That was 4 weeks ago. The supply ship is still 28 days away. And things have gotten so much worse. The knocking doesn't stop anymore. It used to be occasional, scattered. Now it happens all the time. Every airlock on the station, simultaneously. The sound echoes through the corridors, a constant metallic rhythm that's driving us all slowly insane. Knock, 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 knock. Over and over and over. Victor broke first. I woke up 3 days ago to silence. For the first time in weeks, I didn't hear the knocking. The absence of sound was so jarring that I thought something was wrong with my hearing. I found Victor in the common area, sitting at the table with his hands folded in front of him. He was pale, trembling, staring at nothing. "Victor," I said, "what happened? Why did it stop?" He looked up at me with hollow eyes. I answered it. My blood went cold. "You what?" "I couldn't take it anymore, Lance. I just couldn't. So I went to Section C, to Airlock C7, and I knocked back. 3 knocks, same rhythm." "Jesus Christ, Victor. Why would you do that?" "Because it stopped," he said, his voice rising. "Don't you get it? I answered and it stopped." Commander Brink came in then, his face dark with anger. "You did what?" Victor just kept staring at the table. "It stopped," he whispered. Brink looked like he wanted to throw Victor out an airlock himself, but instead, he just turned and walked away, his hands balled into fists. For several hours, there was nothing, just blessed, horrible silence. We moved through the station like ghosts, waiting for something to happen. It was during my shift, around hour 15, when I heard it again. I was in Section C because of course I was. Some part of me is always drawn back there, like my subconscious knows that's where it all started. But this time, it wasn't knocking. It was a voice, muffled, distant, coming from the other side of Airlock C7. I could barely make out the words at first. I pressed my ear against the inner door, my heart pounding. "Let me in." The voice was Victor's, unmistakably Victor's voice, with his slight accent and the way he emphasized certain syllables. "Let me in, let me in, let me in," over and over in the same flat tone. I backed away from the door, my legs shaking. I ran to find Victor, my mind racing with impossible explanations. Maybe he'd gone outside in a suit. Maybe he was trapped in the airlock somehow. But Victor was in his quarters, curled up on his bunk, staring at the wall. He hadn't moved in hours. "Victor," I said. "Victor, something's using your voice." He didn't respond, didn't even blink. I contacted Commander Brink. When he arrived, I took him to Section C. We stood outside Airlock C7, listening. "Let me in, let me in," let me in." Victor's voice, distant but clear, coming from the vacuum of space. "Check the other airlocks," Brink said, his voice tight. We split up. I went to Section B while Brink checked Section A. What we found made everything so much worse. Every airlock was the same. Victor's voice pleading to be let in, the words echoing from every door on the station. We met back in the command module, where Brink immediately put in an emergency call for rescue. 4 weeks minimum, they said. They'd tried to expedite it, but we were at Neptune. There wasn't exactly a lot of traffic out here. That was 3 days ago. Victor still hasn't spoken. He just sits in his quarters, staring at nothing, barely eating or drinking. Sometimes I see his lips moving, but no sound comes out. The voices haven't stopped. They're still out there, speaking from every airlock. But they've changed. They're not just saying, "Let me in" anymore. They're describing things. The inside of the station, the layout of the corridors, the color of the walls in the common area. They're talking about me and Commander Brink, describing what we're wearing, where we are at any given moment. "Lance is in Section B now," Victor's voice says from Airlock B3. He's wearing his grey maintenance suit. He looks tired. And it's right. It's always right. Commander Brink and I have barricaded ourselves in the command module. We've sealed the door, disabled the airlocks remotely. We take turns sleeping, always one person awake and watching. But it doesn't matter. The voices are getting clearer, more distinct. And they're not just using Victor's voice anymore. Last night, I heard my own voice outside Airlock A1, describing the contents of my personal locker, things no one else could know. This morning, I heard Commander Brink's voice explaining the emergency override codes for the station's life support. Whatever is out there, it's learning. It listened to us for weeks through those airlocks, learning our voices, our speech patterns, our knowledge. The knocking was never a threat. It was a greeting, a way of announcing its presence. And we responded. Victor responded. And now it knows we're here, really here. Not just sounds and vibrations, but thinking, feeling beings. I don't think it wants to come inside. I think it's doing something worse. It's learning to be us, to sound like us, to think like us. 28 days until rescue. That's what the timer on the command console says. 28 days of listening to our own voices, speaking from the void, getting clearer and clearer, more and more human. Except they're not human. There's something else, something that's been floating out here, in this empty region of space, this place called the Outer Reach, that we thought was just nothing, just void. But it's not empty. It never was. Last night, I heard the voices change again. They're not just describing things anymore. They're having conversations, talking to each other in our voices, discussing station operations, sharing memories that belong to us. Commander Brink heard his dead wife's name spoken in his own voice, along with details of their last conversation before he left for this tour. Details he'd never shared with anyone. I heard myself talking about my sister's accident, the one that happened when I was 12. Every word was something I'd thought about, but never said out loud. It knows us now, really knows us. And the worst part, the part that keeps me awake even during my sleep shifts, the voices are starting to sound less like recordings, more natural, more alive. They're getting better at being us than we are. Victor died this morning. We found him in his quarters, just stopped breathing. No signs of injury, no medical explanation. He was staring at the wall with a slight smile on his face, like he'd finally found peace. But his voice is still out there, speaking from the airlocks, stronger now, clearer. "It's beautiful out here," his voice says. "You should see it, Lance. You should see what I see." Commander Brink and I don't talk much anymore. What is there to say? We just sit in the command module, watching the timer count down, listening to ourselves speak from the other side of every door on this station. 27 days to rescue. 27 days of hearing our voices become something else. I don't think we're going to make it. Not really. Even if the rescue ship arrives, even if they pull us off this station and take us back to Earth, I don't think we'll ever really leave. Because part of us is already out there. Part of us has been learned, copied, absorbed by whatever exists in the outer reach. Right now, I can hear my voice outside Airlock C7. It's telling Commander Brink's voice about my childhood, my first job, my hopes for the future, and the terrible thing is, everything it's saying is true. I just don't know how it knows.